Okay, that's why I come on Saturdays.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So does that mean?
Hey Jeff, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
Tri-City.
Look, I've been disconnected with people.
So this isn't on the agenda, this is just on, well, it's on the agenda, just under other business.
Stepping out of the base and CBA.
Where'd it go? Oh,
Yeah.
Genesis. No, that's not it.
Decided, you know, I'm gonna read, yeah, it is. Sometimes you just have to say, okay, and listen out.
Okay,
Yeah, I like the ambulance. I don't
Okay.
complain that's in trouble, but I guess I don't have to do it.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe me, my current stupid insurance president. It's just not fun. So when we finally from there.
Yep, I got you.
Communication unit?
Yes,
Where
they're
are they
there.
gonna be? I know where you're going.
They're right across the hall from me. It's where Scott McCallum used to be before he retired. So yeah, just across the hall. Columbine, but I'm
Tighter.
yeah, well, in my office, I've been there
Gotta get winter,
for,
my winter.
I've been there now for 3 years, but I've been in the building.
It's normally outside, right?
I think almost,
You know, by now.
26 years I've been in the building. Yeah, that's why I've never left.
I'm over at City Hall, isn't there?
No, that was pictures.
The likelihood is that's probably the last time you'll see it, but it is.
What year was that?
No,
Had to have been before I moved over there.
it was like, I
290s?
think just late 80s.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just early 90s maybe. I know I've been trying to figure that out.
Stay here, I'll come to you guys.
That's a really good building. They should have stayed in that.
yeah.
I just think down there.
in the digital, not even the ones that were made.
So it's on.
Yeah, I like the building, that's for sure. Actually, looks like our foundation,
Gets
they call
that
me
in.
and say, well, I've been there forever and. they're like, "So, what do you think?"
All right, 6:30, I'll call to order. Kim, you got roll call?
Got it.
All right. In front of you are the approval of the April 10th, 2025 agenda.
I move the agenda.
We got to move. And then please,
You need a second?
what's it?
Need a second?
Oh, I need a second on that, I'm sorry.
Support.
All right, got a motion and support. Any discussion? Seeing none, we make, well, that, we don't vote on that though.
Yes, you do.
Oh, I'll take a vote that we make the motion, or on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, in front of you also are the minutes held on March 13th of 2025. Any discussion?
I wasn't here, I'm not gonna make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 13th, 2025.
All right, we have a motion on the board. Any support?
Support.
Got support on it. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. All right, right now is public comments. Public comments is when you can address the city commission, or I'm sorry, city planning commission of anything that's not on the agenda. And I will open it for public comments.
So, Mr. Chair, just for future, I think we'd have to look at the bylaws, but I don't know if it says anything not on the agenda. Ms. Hodge, are you aware what the bylaws say
I
in that
think
regard?
that's addressed.
Okay.
I always, that's all just my past
Sure.
experiences.
I just don't want people to feel like they can't express their concerns about something that's on the agenda.
Okay,
Just so you know, they just opened public comments. So they just walked in.
okay. Seeing none, I'll close public comments, and then I guess we'll get confirmation on that, Kim? That part?
Sure.
Okay. And then in front of us is a special hearing scheduled, a special land use of Tri-City Hot Dogs at 1500 Summit Street.
Good evening, on this snowy April day. In front of you is 1500 Summit Street, Tri-City Hot Dogs. It is under other temporary uses in section 71310 and 71311. The applicant is requesting to place a temporary hot dog stand outside of the Home Depot entrance to service and receive a special land use by the Planning Commission. This is the parcel in regarding the Home Depot site on Summit Drive. It is Zone B3, Regional Business. This is a image that was provided by the applicant of the exact location of the entrance. As you can see, that small little white box here with the arrow. The trailer is roughly 8 feet by 6 feet and is about 10 feet from the building. This is an image that was provided by the applicant as well of the trailer that he'll be locating there. Regarding special land use standards, subject parcel is Zone B3. It says a commercial, regional under the master plan, and commercial use is consistent with the master plan goals of future land uses. The proposed use, staff comments, proposed use is accessory use and considered to be compatible with the design of the parcel intent of the zoning district. Standard B, finding of facts, is that the parcel is B3 and that the intent of this chapter in zoning district is to provide uses that are compatible with the district. The proposed use is consistent with that intent. Standard C, regarding construction and maintenance, the parcel surrounding area is commercial in nature in the site, and the current location is of the Home Depot. The staff comments that proposed use would be compatible with surrounding general commercial area. BG use to the east is B2, to the south is B3. To the north is actually a vacant R2 single-family district, and to the west is general commercial B2. Standard D, adequate public facilities. There's definitely facilities in that area. They'll be largely using electricity for the site, for their use. For standard E, process of materials, equipment, the applicant shall meet all county and health requirements, and the applicant is using electric for the building and propane as well. As there are no noise and other nuisances that are proposed on for the use. Staff comment is not believed to be a proposed use that will be detrimental to the natural environment, public health, and safety. The staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission is confident that the information provided by the applicant tonight's addresses all concerns, that approval with conditions that the applicant shall meet all fire department comments and all county health department requirements, and to be administratively reviewed annually, utilizing the outdoor merchandise display and sales permit process rather than coming back through for if it's the same use. If the Planning Commission is not confident in the information provided, we recommend denial of the special land use.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions for Alex?
Mr. Riku, does the city only allow a trailer for this type of permitted use, or would we allow a built or fixed structure?
That's a good question. So the way the zoning ordinance addresses such uses is under the other temporary, which is in section 13, 10, 11, and 13, let me go back. Under 13, 7, 13, 10, and 7, 13, 11. So it's a question of whether this is a compatible use to the district, rather so much if it's the type of structure.
So I couldn't find anything that would require one way or the other.
Right.
My concern is in an email that's provided to us in our packet from Pete Gelsma to Eric Johnson or Johnson Eric. One of the subparts indicates that the unit must be a built or fixed structure, no carts, trucks, or trailers. If the city will only allow a trailer, we must gain approval from Home Depot, and the wheels and tongue of the trailer must be concealed. Now, that's not one of our requirements. It appears to be some kind of internal requirement between whoever these two people are. One has a canteen1.com email address, so probably from the contractor. But, you know, if their own requirements are that it be a permanent built fixed structure, are we losing out on having a more attractive, more durable structure be installed there versus what's a trailer, right? So I just want to bring that to the commission's notice, that they're asking for a special land use approval, but they appear to be in violation of their own standards.
Thank you.
Home Depot standards?
Who, I mean, I only have this email that was included in our packet between pjelsma2@canteen1.com to Eric Johnson at ejohns011@live.com. They've stated that's their requirements, and although the city has no requirements, they'd be in violation of their own requirements. And I think a built, fixed structure, permanent, would be more attractive and safer and better overall.
If I could say so, it's strange though, because Home Depot, like a long time ago, I don't wanna say long time ago, but I think before COVID now, used to have actually a cart in the Home Depot. It was actually not outside, it was in their little like entryway. And they were there, I think actually more than just a typical summer, because it was, you know, inside, so it was out from the weather elements. But, so if they're allowing that type of a cart, which is a temporary structure, I don't know why they would require it be a permanent structure. So, I mean, this is gonna be only something they could do really during the summertime, right? Or, you know, I mean, like the warmer months, so I don't know why, because it looks like it would be, where they're putting this trailer is almost like where it's right by the one of the entrances that you would go into. So I don't know if that's the case, but like you can go in either side of that entrance, and if you put it on one side, it looks like it's gonna temporarily maybe block that area. I don't know for sure, but that's what it looks like. I go to Home Depot a lot, obviously, but.
Is there anybody here from
Yeah.
Tri City Hot Dogs?
I'm gonna open the public hearing.
Yeah,
Austin?
yeah, I'm gonna open the public hearing right now. This is when you can address, do that, but we'd step up, just say your name and your address and, okay,
Eric Johnson.
Yep.
3381 McKean Lake Road, Columbia.
good, good.
Questions?
Well, so I guess we've got an email to you from Canteen One. Well, first of all, who's Canteen One?
Canteen One is the company that Home Depot contracts to manage these hot dog stands.
Okay.
Now, yes, they have said that, but yes, they've approved trailers in other Home Depots, and I've also sent these photographs to them, and they've approved that. The wheels will be covered. The tongue does come off, so it will look like it's a building. And they're gonna be covered with stainless steel shelves, so people can fix their hot dogs, you know, things like that.
Okay, I get all that, but it seems to be, you know, what you're proposing is a violation of their own rules. Okay. Is this gonna be a temporary thing for 1 year, or are you asking for like permanent every year to be able to do this?
Continue on till they say ask us to move.
Yeah, so the idea would be that they would have to come in for, it would be, based on a conditional approval would be that they would come by and get an outdoor sales permit to go through that process, as opposed to a special land use public hearing for a temporary use.
So this, so this temporary use would be running with the land itself, but the actual person who could do it would still have to go get some kind of permit on a regular basis?
Right, annually, they would have to submit an outdoor merchandise permit, which is reviewed administratively. That way, if there's any issues, staff can do it, and it has to be reviewed annually and renewed.
Thank you.
Anything else out here?
one of the reasons why trailers are kind of evolving in this whole situation with Home Depot is the SDFU license that is required for mobile food vendors has to be movable. And if we put it into like a smaller building, then they deem it in a whole different license, and I don't know that process. That's what I've been told by the county health department.
Thank you. Any more questions for the applicant? For instance?
I just wanted to know whether or not because of where the location of it's gonna be, is that close enough where it's gonna block that entrance or no?
No, it's deceiving on the picture, but I actually had Chris Jadak, fire inspector, come down and he showed us exactly where it's supposed to go according to the regulations for them.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
All right, any more about the public hearing on this before I close the public hearing?
So,
Yes,
I'm assuming one of the reasons why they have the tongue of the trailer concealed so it can be hooked up to, possibly in case of a fire?
The
You just
tongue
gotta
is
pull it
actually
away.
removable, so whenever I need to move it or they need to move it, the tongue gets hooked on there again.
Did the fire inspector have any comments on lame fire suppression?
He told me it was approved and he needs to inspect it before they open.
Okay.
So maybe an appropriate motion would be to be subject to, fire marshal approval.
All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing if I see no more comments from the public. All right, any more discussion from the board?
Only just one comment that the removal of the tongue might also be a tripping hazard issue.
Yeah.
Subject to fire department.
So Chair, if I will,
Yep.
the comments, I'm sorry, the staff comments for conditions are actually.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
As opposed to.
yep.
they got left
Right in front of my face.
Apologies.
No problem.
Alex, can you stop being so good to be ahead of us all the time?
I didn't get a chance to review everything.
Well, we had a busy day today, so.
All right, any
That's
more
good.
discussion?
I know people are gonna love having hot dogs again at Home Depot. I remember when they stopped doing that, there was a lot
It
of.
was a bummer when they
Yeah.
stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Not
Maybe
that-
at Kogel's.
Not that it matters in this circumstance, but I do think we need to be cautious about allowing trailer food services to supplant and displace brick and mortar restaurants. I've dealt with food trucks in other communities that wanted to park right up in front of another restaurant, and that's just a bad idea. So
Yeah.
let's keep that in mind in the future if we have other requests similar to this.
You guys usually do the farmer's market? Thought I recognized you.
I'll make a motion to approve the special land use requested by Tri-City Hot Dog to permit a temporary food truck at 1500 Summit Street, subject to the fire marshal's approval because the request meets all standards in section 7-19-04 for approval of a special land use with the following conditions being the approval of the fire marshal.
Yeah, there's
the-
Two more minutes.
Oh, and those two as well, correct.
Okay.
All right, we got a motion on the board. Any support?
I'll second that.
And we got a second on there, so we got a motion and support. Any more discussion? All those in favor in the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. All right, and next to subject is our site plan review for Aspen Dental over at 936 South Main and 947 Baldwin Road. Alex?
Yes, good evening, everyone. So this is a proposed commercial use of 3,500 square feet. The subject parcels between Main and, Baldwin Street. The subject parcel is zone B2 zoning map. This is an area of the existing site. As you can see, there's an approach apron there for the drive currently, as well as the insurance business. It's largely vacant. This is a street view of it. As you can see, it naturally depresses into the ground there. There is sidewalks along Main, but there are no sidewalks along Powers. Here we have the applicants provided us the site plan for the site. I know it's a little bit tough to see, but as you can see, there are some items regarding variance requests for the setbacks, which I provide you from their plan sheets. If you notice the V on the tables, those are noting variance requests, which the applicant is applying for ZBA requests regarding setbacks for, as this site has two frontages on Powers and Main. And that there are a variance request for landscaping setbacks, front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, and parking setbacks as well, where the parking lot is approaching on the required setbacks. I provide you also a grading for the site. As you can see, it naturally drops down from the street to the site based on the contour lines provided. There is the lighting plan as well. Landscaping, noting all of the trees that they're keeping on site, as well as the buffering and landscaping surrounding the parking lot, not in the parking lot, as well as this landscaping fronting Main as well. I provide the south elevations right now. These are just not approved yet. These Aspen Dental, we're waiting for ultimately all the sign permit to be brought in after construction, so we know that the as-built square footage, so that we're within the appropriate limits of sign requirements, but they do meet so far the window requirements and materials. Sorry, I'm going with that. The east elevation, the west elevation, and then of course the north elevation of the building. A few outstanding items, which I kind of briefly touched on, was given that this is on MDOT M24 overlay, there may be, not necessarily sure, some access permits or standards for MDOT on the site. I think, they're going to go through that process to see if there is. Regarding district regulations, like I mentioned, this has two front yards given its corner lot, so they do meet one of the 30-foot setback requirements, but the one on the south, they're within that. Sidewalks and paths. If you notice on the website, on the site plans, that the applicant is proposing an alternative plan of providing sidewalks and paths. Noted there are sidewalks there along M24, but given the contours of the site, and mind me, I'm just going to scroll back up. I'm not very good. Yes, it does actually. Okay. Given that the contours do drop off, the applicant wants to discuss potentially connecting the sidewalk through the site, through the parking lot, and out. So they would not be providing the required sidewalk along the street here. Going back to outstanding items, sidewalk paths, the next two are that the setbacks for parking is within the 10 feet on both the north and the south, and the loading and unloading, they are proposing a smaller parking spot, as that the deliveries will be of a van or small truck, not a large vehicle for the dental business that is being proposed. Staff comments, given that they wish to move the boundaries of the two addresses with the insurance business and this vacant site, they need to go through the approval lot split combination and obviously with the assessor and get city commission approval. Building department has no comments at this time, neither does fire. DPW has some comments regarding detailed plans for sewer and tap fees. And then there's a number of engineering comments regarding the sidewalks, drainage, stormwater management, sanitary sewer lines, and then the construction of the trash enclosure. So with the standards of approval of the use, site design characteristics, building design, preservation of significant natural features, site access, emergency vehicles, traffic impact, general development requirements, utilities, stormwater management, other agencies, and hazardous materials. It's the staff's recommendation that the applicant receive approval with the following conditions. Applicant is to receive approval from the City of Lapeer Zoning Board of Appeals for all listed variances. Applicant to satisfy all outstanding compliance items and all other outstanding department comments from staff, and complete a lot split in combination with the city assessor and other city staff.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions for Alex?
Can I just go back to the sidewalk thing? So, I have to have that one aerial. Okay,
Sorry, here we go.
okay, so are you talking about that they don't want to continue the sidewalk from Baldwin to, like, on Power Street, along Power Street? From Baldwin, I'm trying to figure out which direction
So,
we're at.
yeah, so, I'll make a slight correction, as this is north, sorry,
Oh,
here, north.
I'm thinking of it the other way, okay.
Here, Powers running east-west, and Baldwin here on the west side. The sidewalk proposal is to come off of Main, move west, head south, come around the building, and then into the parking lot, and then back it may be more difficult, but you can see that this part slopes significantly downward
Mhm.
here, where the
Okay.
building would be set. So coming off of here, there would have to be a lot of improvements to essentially, I want to comment for them, but some structural improvements, perhaps like a wall. And they're here, the team,
Okay.
to answer any questions.
Okay,
within
it's
their-
helpful to see that, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
so.
Excellent. You say the applicant was here?
Right.
Did you have a question first?
Yeah, sidewalks again, sorry. So they have to have a sidewalk because it's considered a front yard
Well,
there,
Yeah.
or?
I mean, the planning commission, aside from the setback variances and loading, that's within the purview of the planning commission to determine here, and that's what the kind of the applicant wanted to discuss today was what items would the planning commission wish to see, or which items they would be wish to waive in terms of required. Is that sorry?
So what is the list of those things, I guess?
Yeah, so let me go back to my outstanding items.
Sorry, Josh.
Yeah.
No, this one's a little messy, and I think we need to talk about it.
Yeah, so we have the M24 access permits that may come in play, so the applicant needs to go through that process.
Right.
So that'd be a condition of approval. The other part of the district regulation, so in table 7603, they need to have a 30-foot setback on both frontages. On the the east side and the south side. They meet the east side along Main, they're more than 30 feet back. On the south side, they're not, they're roughly at 14. So they would need a variance for that front yard setback requirement because it's a corner lot.
Okay.
The sidewalks and paths in 71504 is required. And so they're trying to meet that standard by providing an alternative design that goes within the site, not along the site, and close to the building and near existing pavements.
So Alex, can I ask a third question on the sidewalks?
Yes, please.
I had another one.
So I can get behind the departure off, you know, M24 towards the building, hug the building, I get all that.
Yeah.
But on the southwest corner of the building, it looks like the sidewalk just stops, and then you said something about going through the parking lot. Where does it continue to the west?
To my knowledge, it doesn't. It just kind of connects to the parking lot.
And so do we have a requirement to continue the sidewalk to the west?
There could be, based on PC comments, that the applicant could, I mean, we could look at alternatives for that site, whether we are able to move or provide sidewalks in an alternative fashion through the site as opposed to like along the street. So it kind of just terminates at the side, at the parking lot at the moment, near the entrance of the building on the west side where the parking lot is. And then the other comment is that the also setback requirements, which are the off-street parking, they're within the 10-foot requirements both on the south and north side of the parking lot, and then the loading zone. So let me go back to the site. As you can see here in the site plan, I'll do my very best here. So this is the required setback. They're within that, there and here, because in order to provide the turn radius, the parking lot can't come further in on either end to provide the appropriate turn radius for the parking design of the site.
Alex, can you talk to us about the loading zone and what's required and what's proposed?
Yeah, it's similar to all the other uses of a 500 square foot loading zone for, you know, trucks or whatever may be proposed in the future.
So a 19 by 8 foot wide parking spot is not a math genius.
Right, the applicant would want to discuss that with the planning commission, upon my discussion with them, that they wanted to kind of share their input of that design that they're wanting to proceed with.
All right. Commissioner Atwood, you had a question?
Yeah, back to the sidewalks. Does PNC have the sidewalk on their, in front of their building on Power Street?
That's a good question.
No.
They do not. That goes, it runs along 24, it does not go that way.
So,
So a walking path into this specific property, if I'm reading it right, will come down 24 and then turn east or westbound, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it goes into the parking lot, and I'm going to assume with how large this lot is, that Keith's, or the State Farm place is gonna be no longer?
No, they will continue, to my knowledge.
So your parking lot's gonna butt up to the back of his, or I'm sorry, his, I know, that's why I'm saying his, but the State Farm property.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And he would remain open and operating as
Yep.
it is today.
And he has a sidewalk in front of his property as well, or their property. So there's a sidewalk on Baldwin Road.
yeah.
Is there?
I mean, I would,
I don't know if there is any.
my suggestion would be
Stops
to
there?
not,
Yeah, there isn't along Powers.
No.
No.
Yeah, they do.
Yep, there is
Yeah.
a sidewalk over here. Yep.
They have them on both
On
sides.
Baldwin?
Yeah.
There isn't Baldwin,
Yes.
nothing on Powers.
Well,
Nothing.
not going south, going north. So,
I mean, I see the benefits of having a sidewalk somewhere there, but it seems kind of goofy to have it go through their parking lot.
I think that is really strange.
Alex, how far off the right of way is the current proposed parking on the south side of this parking lot? In other words, let me ask it this way: can they install an ADA 5-foot wide sidewalk along there on the south side of the parking area?
You have, I'm not the engineer, but I would, they're here, but I would say that anecdotally, I don't think it's feasible.
Would you, got a few things thrown at you, and you wanna
What do you want?
reply to any of them? First and foremost, how about that comment right there?
Yeah, so, Mitch Harvey with Stonefield Engineer.
Okay.
Engineering is here. He can
Absolutely.
Speak more to the grading and the sidewalk.
Perfect.
I brought some posters to help me out. So this is another picture of street view, kind of looking west into the site. And so you have Powers up here, you have the adjacent, it's a Pennzoil to the north of us. There's approximately a 7-foot grade change across the site. As you can see, Powers is much higher, it drops down pretty substantially, flattens out, then it drops down a little bit more. So with that comes a few challenges in designing a sidewalk that can get across here. What we're dealing with is an extremely narrow site. Really, the site is only, in this dimension here, about 74 feet. So we're struggling to fit parking spaces, a drive aisle, and parking spaces. Obviously, as well as the building. So we're really shrinked with what we could fit in here, no matter what the use was. So, you know, we're trying to balance our grading, so we're not sticking way up above the oil change facility, and we're not sticking way below the power street. So we had to kind of balance that grading between the two. So what we did is, you know, we kind of came up with a happy medium from a finished floor standpoint, because that building has to be relatively flat. Same thing with the parking lot, you can't have that in a 1-3 slope. But anyways, to discuss the sidewalk, we can't bring a sidewalk all the way across here and maintain that 2% side slope that you need for ADA accessibility. So as opposed to doing that, we wanted to provide some sort of pedestrian connectivity, at least to our building. And then if someone did want to continue on through the sidewalk, similarly, if someone parked here, how they would get to our building just walking through a parking lot, that opportunity is there. But we don't have room to build, or the grades to build that sidewalk along the public right-of-way to the south without some sort of retaining wall or some major earthwork that would accommodate that. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. This was the solution that we came up with to kind of do what we can from a pedestrian walkability standpoint. And that's kind of how we arrived at that. From a loading standpoint, this is a dental office. So once you have that initial move in, the chairs are in, you know, all the equipment associated with the dental office, you really don't have a whole lot of big semi trucks delivering anything at all. So what we decided to do right here is where we could put a loading zone if we had to. Really what we wanted to do is encourage some more green space on the site and utilize this as green space as opposed to just stripe out a unused loading zone. We thought it'd be more beneficial to add some more trees, kind of bring some greenery to the site than a largely unused loading zone. Here we have the spot that, you know, if a truck was gonna, a FedEx truck was gonna deliver something, that would be where they would load.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant or the engineer?
Are you meeting your minimum parking requirements?
Yes, we are.
By how many spots?
We have 30, I believe 14 is required, and 30 is based on the tenant demand here. So this is Aspen Dental. They have locations all over the state. We do a lot of them, and really they look for that 30 parking space threshold. So that's how we arrived at that number.
So you're doubling the minimum number of parking spaces, but you can't have a loading zone?
Well, we're doubling the minimum from a zoning ordinance standpoint. 30 is the minimum Aspen Dental will have. From a loading standpoint, we wanted to maintain green space as much as possible.
And green space is cheaper than parking, I get that,
Mhm.
but we have a requirement here that you have a loading zone, isn't that correct, Mr. Rick? Okay. And mean, obviously whoever put together the setback requirements wasn't taking into account a site like this where it's long and narrow. I get that. Personally, I'm in favor of intruding upon the setbacks for parking requirements. I get that too. But I think if we're gonna have a requirement that we have loading zones, that, enforce our requirements.
Okay.
You said that the sidewalk was possible with a retaining wall?
Yeah. We require retaining wall.
So one thing I'm just talking here at this point, but one thing I'm not in favor of is the sidewalk to nowhere. Requiring them to be able to put a sidewalk in at some future date, I think is important if we have expanded growth out there. Mr. Rick, is it possible to require them to maintain the space for a sidewalk, if possible, with retaining wall for future development or future installation?
Well, they could maintain, as I believe that area is still remaining open, to my knowledge, based on just dimensions, without any site improvements of a retaining wall. And I would imagine that, given the drop, there would have to probably be railing for that no one falls more than, at that point, possibly 4 or 5 feet. I'm guessing if we're gonna be at grade and dropping off, there would have to be a security design element there, like railing on that corner. But yeah, I mean, you could, require that this area be open for potential sidewalk improvements on the site.
Well, like I said, I don't see any point in requiring a very expensive build-up for a sidewalk, unless, of course, it's necessary. And the city maintains the ability to specially assess them and force them to put it in as well. But I think it's important that we force them to require that space remain open in the future if we want to do it.
And that could be part of an approval to note on the plans for record.
So you're not gonna raise the site up at all, you're gonna leave it down in the bowl then?
We're raising it up about two feet,
Okay.
but we're not raising it up to be at level with Power Street, because then to the north of us, we would have a retaining wall again. And that's just kind of what we're trying to balance here.
Thank you. Any more questions for the applicant or engineer? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any more discussion?
My issue, I guess, with the sidewalk is that I feel like, if you're really creating the sidewalk from 24 where people can see it, and you're right, it might be just maybe somebody walking to the building, but if you're really kind of making it look like it's a pedestrian walkthrough and there's really no connecting sidewalk, you've got people walking through a sidewalk and it could become a safety issue, because people are not expecting to have people just walking through the parking lot. So I guess I don't think it makes sense. I mean, we could obviously agree to not require a sidewalk at all, correct?
Planning Commission's ability to waive.
Yeah, so I mean, that's my preference. I mean, it's fine if we want to, leave it open to obviously not putting any kind of railing or anything out, but just have it be open there for future development. But I don't see a reason why we would require some type of sidewalk to go through the parking lot. That makes no sense to me.
And you're talking about the one that would shoot west off of 24?
Correct,
Oh,
correct.
yeah. I
That's the one I'm
agree
talking about.
with you on that one too.
Alex, I think the assessor's comments about split land combination approval, I think I know what she's getting at, but I don't think it actually says combination of the properties. Would that be a requirement? Because it's on two separate parcels.
It's a modification in the sense that there is a split there under common ownership, and that the boundary is going to move. And that, I'm not sure if the ownership wishes to maintain ownership of all, or they're going to split off the parcels. So they're gonna combine and then split off, because the property line would be, I'm gonna do my best to show here. Perhaps you can see here, there's a natural boundary right there, that line is going to move much closer to the existing building. And then there'll be a new parcel created. So my comment there from the assessor was just a summary of hers, was just going through that process to adjust the boundaries.
So these are not gonna be combined into one parcel?
No. There'll be two. There's two now, but they're just gonna move the boundary line.
Is any part of the use of this property gonna be on that second parcel that's being created, the small parcel?
No. Well, it's, well, the applicant's here, but it appears to me that if you want to state that the use, like the drive and pavement area would be, I believe, in what is the other property at the moment right now.
So it's possible that they could sell off that second property and then limit themselves access because their driveway would go through somebody else's piece of property? There's a reason why we expect people to have all their use of a property on one parcel, so that they can't then turn around and sell off sub-parts of it. We have the same exact issue with that, was it the orthodontics place?
Yeah, right,
With
but
their parking lot?
they need to go through the process with the assessor to split off. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, there is, the State Farm Insurance has sufficient parking for their own use right now. They would not be creating a nonconformity. What they're going to do is move this boundary over and then essentially have their own use entirely on their boundary.
Yeah, if I can just
Yeah.
clarify, I believe one of the conditions is that we go through the lot split process, right?
That is one of the
So
conditions.
the property line right here is here.
Yeah.
We're gonna split it, we're gonna modify this property line and push it all the way over here. So this is your new property line. This parcel is completely separate from all of this parcel, and this will be one parcel, including the building, the drive aisles, and the parking spaces would all be on one piece of property.
Oh, so is the existing building, whatever that one is on the west side, on the Baldwin?
State Farm.
So is that their parcel right now?
Their parcel line is approximately, and the property line is the property is currently split here.
Okay.
There's a property here, there's a property here. This is property one, property two.
Gotcha, okay.
This is gonna be property 1A, property 2A, if
Got
that
it.
makes sense.
My mistake, I thought there were 3 properties.
No, just two.
Thank you. You address something?
No, I was.
Okay, got that, you stood up. You're all good.
Here to answer questions.
Yep.
And what was your name, sir, the one who spoke?
Me?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm Mitchell Harvey, I'm with Stonefield Engineering.
okay.
Okay, any more discussion? I guess, how does the commission feel about the sidewalk that goes west? I personally see a sidewalk on Baldwin Road and 24. I don't see a need to go westbound on it. I do understand the keeping the space for future use. I also see the issue with the cost that would cost to put a sidewalk on there, and with one not being on the south property, the south property, I don't really see, me personally, I don't really see a need for that either. That's my view on it. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel.
I mean, I'm with Ms. Bostic, going through the parking lot is a horrible idea. But with you, I think spending the extra money to put it in right now, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But we are under a strong obligation to do what's best for not only now, but for the future. So we should probably require that they maintain that space available for a sidewalk in the future. My opinion.
Okay, maintain just for possible use, okay? How does everybody else feel?
Do we need to have some kind of easement if this is gonna be a proposed sidewalk, is a public, sidewalk? Are we gonna need some kind of easement over the sidewalk going around their building? Or we just simply require them to maintain that for public use?
Yeah, they're required to maintain it for public use. just like all the applicants we had, some of the mid-state we had, they do have a sidewalk and they're required to provide, to make the improvements. So that's a good condition.
Okay. I think we're probably all in agreement on that portion of it. We have to address the zone, or the loading, or?
Well, so, yeah, so that is, for the first one, the agencies, that would be a standard of approval for addressing comments. District regulations would be a variance request, which the applicant has provided a application for the ZBA.
Okay.
You can waive sidewalk paths based on the design of the narrowness of the site and the topography of the site. That's the real reasons for it.
Yes.
No other reasons. As well as for 7/1604 would be the variance request for setbacks of the parking from the ZBA. And then lastly, the offloading loading would be either a required design element that they could provide or a potential waiver by the PC.
Okay, so I guess that would be our next
And
discussion.
that could, sorry.
Go ahead.
That could all be addressed administratively based on conditions of approval.
I like that.
I mean, I don't want to look for reasons always to skirt our own rules. We have rules for a reason. And I'm unconvinced at this time that the applicant's desire for additional green space warrants waiving this requirement. Now, if we need to change that requirement under our ordinances in the future, I'm open to that as well. But our rules are our rules right now, and I'm not convinced that more green space is sufficient or appropriate.
More thoughts? Commissioner Patterson?
Just, okay, on the site plan, though, we have a proposed off-hours loading zone. Are we, a different loading zone is required?
So yes, this would be administrative approval for them to provide the necessary ordinance requirements for loading and unloading on the site. So that could be either by dedicating existing parking or increasing pavement for that on the site. So
Okay, so the sheet C2,
yeah, they would provide that, yeah, it would be administrative, so I would see that when they bring back any new designs.
I thought it was on here though. I mean, it's on here. Is it that they need two
Well,
spaces?
yeah, so they have one parking stall, which is
Right.
essentially 9 by 20, which is roughly 180 square feet. The required minimum is 500, which would be roughly 2.5 or 3 spaces of parking area for loading and unloading, given that you want the vehicle to be appropriately sited on the site, as well as any maneuvering of equipment based on current use or future proposed uses, have adequate maneuvering of
So if it's somebody, if they left and somebody else
Yeah,
came
right,
in, you'd
right,
want to have that
right.
there. I get it.
So the applicant can come back and look at that, provide me a new set of plans that I could review along with the engineer.
So from a pragmatic point of view, is there any reason they can't mark 3 spaces as loading zone? And you all know what people do when every other parking space is filled.
It's up to the applicant to decide.
So if they use 2.5 of that, like that 2.5 spaces, whatever that is,
Yeah.
it doesn't eat into enough parking spaces where then they're in a problem with their number of parking spaces,
They have
right?
sufficient parking on site.
Okay.
Yeah, they're doubled their parking
Yeah,
requirements.
right. I just
Under
wanted to-
city ordinance, they're saying Aspen requires 30.
Any more discussion on this? So then how was the loading?
I think for the point that, you know, hopefully they'll be here forever, but if they're not, if they leave in 5 years and there's somebody else that comes in there, and we don't know what they're gonna be, you know, the next owner's gonna have to do. I think we need, I mean, there's not a reason to waive that requirement, I think, at this point. I don't see that.
Why not add something? Or a question?
Mr. Chair, would you like to hear from the applicant?
Oh, yes, I can. I'll take your comment.
Just like hearing the concern, I didn't know if it made sense to where, you know, obviously we all hope Aspen's here forever. But if the use were to change from Aspen to something else, that maybe, the condition be that those signs are added at that time. I don't know if that addresses your concern, but just from the outside hearing it seemed like the concern's not necessarily the loading zone that we've provided based on this use right now. It's what happens 20 years from now.
Well, that's part of it, I think. I think we also have the problem of, we've got a dozen other projects we're working on, and I'm not convinced that your argument for additional green space is sufficient when we've got a couple other dozen people who are gonna have to be required to do it, right? So if you had another good reason, like the slope and the retaining wall and the safety railing, that makes sense to me. The additional green space, you can get out of putting down some expensive asphalt. We have a requirement for a reason.
Yeah, I guess generally I feel like green space is a good thing. By all means, you know, at the far west end of the site, if you add, was it 500 square feet you said, of loading zone, you know, could that be done? You know, I guess I defer to the engineer. It seems like, you know, based on the grading plan, it probably could. But now you're paving 500 additional square feet for, in reality, it not to be used at all. Like you have a dedicated loading zone to where, you know, the delivery, you know, truck or van is just gonna pull up to the front of the, you know, the front of the building anyhow.
Sure, I agree that.
Just from a practical standpoint of if you're walking from that spot all the way, I don't know how many feet it is, but that's all I'm going to point out.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Rico, is there standards in the ordinance about what we should be determining for compliance with that specific issue?
So, if I understand the comment was, well, it's okay now, but in the future you can address it. Well, that would create a legal nonconformity based on the fact that it's been approved. So, with that being said, I think it'd be, it's up to the PC to determine if you want to require the loading zone. And the applicant can come with, you know, with a design that matches their needs, you know. I understand 500 square feet, but there's probably ample space that they could come up with an idea of where that would go.
But my question is, does the ordinance say, well, it should be based upon the feelings of the planning commission on April 10th, 2025, or does it give standards upon which we should be reviewing?
Well, it's a standard, so I think the thing is you're either setting a precedent or not. So in this case, you're potentially just upholding the zoning ordinance requirements rather than creating a precedent for a dental use that wouldn't have to comply with that. So, I don't really see the need.
Yes, Commissioner Atwood.
Couldn't they just remove a couple parking spaces and have that be the loading zone?
Yep, and that was.
I mean, that'd be the
It
easiest.
sounds like Aspen is requiring 30, they're at 30, so if they combine 3, they're done 27, which I think is silly, and it's not our fault for doing that, that's Aspen's fault. I'm in total agreement, I don't want to see additional asphalt put here for no reason. And I'm open to creative ideas and creative solutions, but, you know, the planning commission and the city commission have determined these rules. I don't see any reason why we should deviate from the rules. We can make recommendations for more flexibility in the future to be more business friendly. And I think we should do that. But for right now, the rule says what the rule says.
Can I ask the applicant?
Yes, sir.
So how hard pressed is Aspen to have exactly 30 parking spots?
That's
Is that negotiable with the company or?
30 is the minimum they'll go to. I think, can we look at the site plan? I guess from a loading standpoint, can the loading zone function as 3 parking spaces as well, and kind of some interplay between that? I mean, when the parking lot is full, obviously the business is busy, they're not, like, loading occurs during off hours, it doesn't occur peak times for a dental facility. So could we put 3 signs by 3 spaces and say proposed off-hour loading, and those 3 spaces would only be used if there's a 28th person trying to park? You know, we have a full parking lot, is that, you know, a happy medium?
That's the kind of creative solution I love.
That's a
I don't see a problem with that.
Where were you 5 minutes ago? Come on.
Well, I wanted to let you guys talk about it.
All right, how would, you're looking at me.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, yeah, I mean, typically we would have a dedicated loading zone so that there wouldn't be, you know, proper striping, identification of it, so, yeah, I don't know, it's a new,
But you could do all that,
If
right?
it does-
You could do all the designing like that,
Yeah.
but they know that during office hours, you know, they had a 28 person, they could park there or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, big old sign that says loading zone after 6 PM.
okay. Put that condition of approval for that.
Okay, any more discussion?
Good idea, bad idea?
Unique, it's different.
Well, it's unique.
I've
it's-
seen it, I'm just not as familiar with it, that's all.
It's unique because they're meeting the parking requirement, but the company wants 30 spaces. So if, you know, if they weren't around forever, they could easily make that a,
Well, the next use might only need 14 parking spaces, and they might not give a
right.
darn about.
I'd say if the minimum requirement or parking was an issue, then yeah. But it's kind of like a non-issue with this. That's just me.
Instead of specifically formulating what we just said, I'd like to authorize the planning consultant to work with the applicant to
Yeah.
find a mutually agreeable
I
solution.
think ultimately, so the schedule regulation does not have width of lot in this district. Overall, the nature of this lot is extremely narrow. It just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's so that's why it's been vacant for some time, so it's just a challenge of putting it all in there.
Yeah.
It's a very unique
Legally.
land lot.
All right,
Said legally.
yeah.
All right, any more discussion? I mean, seems like we came up with a pretty happy medium there for this, this issue of the loading zone that I agree with. My outlook on it has been said.
Were you writing down your motion?
Oh, I can say motions, can I? I make a motion to approve the site requested by Aspen Dental to construct a commercial building at 936 South Main and 947 Baldwin Road because it meets all standards in section 7-18 .04 with the following conditions. Applicant receives approval from the city, Lapeer zoning boards on appeals for all listed variances, and there's just a couple there. Applicant to satisfy all zoning compliance items and other outstanding department comments and complete complete a lot split combination with the city assessor and the city staff, and then also how did I want to word that? To work with staff on the loading area.
And then the
And the
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
And, the removal of the sidewalk going west.
But maintenance of
Maintenance.
space to install at a later date.
Maintenance to install at a later date, a possible maintenance to install a possible sidewalk at a later date on Powers Drive.
Support.
Ms. Hodge, are you satisfied by that motion?
Yeah. She's still writing.
After you're done writing it?
Sorry, Kim, I messed up
No,
5
I
times
got it.
talking.
I got it.
All right, we got a motion on the board. I'm sorry, did I hear support? Got support over there. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Now we're on to other business. All right, we got section 1, or, item 1 of 1022 West Genesee preliminary site plan review for the, now, I know there was,
Sorry.
So, I wanted to keep it on the agenda.
Yep.
As the applicant, intended to submit, special land use and site plan review. It just came, under the time, and that they'll be on the, scheduled to be on the agenda next month. For
Okay.
site plan special land use. So I wanted to bring back, the same slides to the attention of the planning commission about, preliminary site plan and special land use for next month.
Alex, sorry, just before you move on, just for clarification purposes, they failed to meet the 14-day public notice requirement for special land uses for this meeting, and that's why it's getting moved to the next meeting?
Yeah, so it's that, yes, that's right. So for this meeting, they missed the timeline for that, but are now on schedule for next month.
For
I
the
just
May.
want to make sure that's noticed for the minutes.
Just a refresher, this is at the four corners of the city of Genesee and Maine, at the former Rite Aid site. The property is currently zoned B1, neighborhood business commercial. The applicant had recently provided us an updated site plan for the site with a few new items that we'll be reviewing here regarding the parking, drive-through, loading zones as well. So there's been some designs as well as increased number of handicap spaces as well at both the employee and patron entrances for customers. In addition, just as a reminder, the applicant is in the B1 district. It's, the tenant would be the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Parking requirements, the building is at roughly 14,700 square feet. That's one space required for every 250 square feet. Currently at the site, there's 58 sites, 58 parking spots on the site, and I believe roughly 15 right now in the additional White Junior High easement. And so going forward, the PC is going to consider, future, to consider also in consideration the interest of the city moving forward of the White Junior High site, proposed future uses of either housing, the easement agreements, understand the impact of the tax capture of the tenant and the use, and highest best uses, as well as looking at the interpretation of what the tenant is. There's a list of number of things in your packet that has been provided by the applicant, on behalf of their tenant, of all the different types of uses on the site. So, we provided a lot of information over the last couple of weeks, and trying to decipher through that as to what's taking place on site for in the operations of the tenant. So I just want to put on the agenda so that we don't keep sight of items that we're proceeding right now and moving forward to. So next month there will be a public hearing for the site plan and special land use for at 1022 West Genesee, a potential Michigan Department of Health and Human Services use.
So obviously I wasn't here last month and I apologize, but so was the reason why this got moved from last month because they didn't provide enough information for the planning commission to consider anything? Is
So
that really the basic?
Yes, very good question. So at last month's meeting, we were presented a zoning permit, and the site plans had changed regarding increasing the parking and cutting into the existing sidewalk pavement and creating some nonconformities. And so there were some changes regarding entries and doors, windows, and so plans had changed. So I thought that it was best to bring it before the planning commission, as it's all under the zoning ordinance, to review the plan and to provide direction as to what's going on inside. So between then and now, there's been an interest of operating a drive-through, which is special land use, and then overall the site design and obviously concerns of traffic and circulation, knowing that this is, to my knowledge, a county-wide destination for certain services and determining what those services are. So with that being said, all drive-throughs are special land use. And so there's a public hearing for that at next month's meeting.
Okay, thank
So-
you for the recap, I appreciate it.
So Alex, one thing, again, I would note for the minutes, these City of Lapeer vision for the, site, considering future tax capture and the other uses listed there, I want to make note that we're only going to consider those that are within the purview of the planning commission and are legal for us to consider, not necessarily what is listed there.
Okay, so then, yeah, public hearing next month.
Yep, yep, that's what I have.
Good on that one?
Okay, yeah, good.
Good deal. All right, and then next on the agenda, number 2 is our,
Could I just, I'm sorry, can I say one thing? Is it okay?
You have to request the permission of the
Can I
chair.
request just to mention one thing?
yes, I'll let you speak.
The, I
Please
know there was a
mention-
letter that
Sir,
I had
could you mention
provided.
your name?
Gary Sling, general,
Approach the podium, please.
Gary Sling, Green Builders Plus, the general contractor for the site.
I'm T.C. Mood, I'm here on behalf of ownership of the property.
Mm-hmm.
I know last time that there, because we had several emails going back and forth, I know one of the issues was they needed to know exactly what the Michigan State, what they do. So that letter was provided, I didn't know if
Yes, they
that
have it.
letter.
They have
Oh,
it in
okay,
the
so
packets,
did
yeah.
that kind of clarify, like?
Yeah,
everything?
it's pretty clear
They
that
were
what,
gonna send somebody today, and then I said, you know what, it shouldn't be a problem if this letter suffices.
yeah, absolutely, this letter suffices, and I think everything could be pretty much cleared up and have more time to speak on it when it's open to the public, on the actual.
But this is the type of information we should have been provided up front, and we were not.
Yeah.
So now that we have it, I think we can consider
Yeah, I
it.
apologize for that. I was expecting them even to send an email, or, at least now we were able to provide it. So I was hoping that, I just wanted to make sure that letter gives you everything you need.
Absolutely.
We do, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
One other thing as well, I guess, my question is, what is the need for a special land use regarding the drive-through?
Because in our city, all drive-throughs require a special land
Okay,
use.
but if it's already, approved as a special use, doesn't the ordinance say that, every use after that is considered conforming?
Not
But we
necess-
had, sorry, but we had a recent applicant too, that was a former bank and wanted to then use a drive-through, it was like a shop that was providing drive-through food services, so that they came back through to a special land use like roughly a year ago for that same reason, making sure that the design and improvements of that drive-through stacking and all the other requirements were met. So it was just a formality that all drive-throughs go through a special land use, and that's common for most communities.
It's funny.
Even once already approved, because maybe it was kind of ambiguous the way
Yeah,
we
so
read
it
it.
happens when there's a change of use. They
Okay.
revisit that. It's based on intensity of the use, so that what happens is that you may have I give this example, you may have a commercial business next to a school, and it's, common. However, when you add a further intensity of the use, more traffic, customers driving through, that is in the zoning ordinance a special land use, and that's common in most communities.
Even if
And
it's.
so what happens then is that you just have to have that public hearing, because it's a matter of not necessarily the design of the quantitative parts of elements, but then the qualitative aspects of public health, safety, welfare of the design, so.
Just a note, as far as traffic goes, so this is a pilot program from the state of Michigan, when I have my conversation with them. There's 2 driveways right now currently. One is gonna be removed, they do not need it. And this is their very first one to try, just for people that are handicapped and can't actually access the car with difficulty. The traffic count is probably gonna be 90% less than what it was with Rite Aid. Rite Aid had an average of 564 cars a day. The state is Monday through Friday, closed Saturday and Sunday. I mean, as far as traffic counts, one less driveway for that, plus the fact that it's gonna be a lot less traffic.
So for what it's worth, and I had almost an identical situation in my previous community, went from a bank to a restaurant, and so we went through the same exact process, because it was significantly increasing the use of the drive-through. The stuff that you know is stuff that we don't.
Don't know.
Okay.
And we are here protecting the rights of the public, So you may know these things, and you may think this is a little silly because you know it's gonna, hold on. You may think it's silly because we're just wasting everybody's time, but in reality, we don't know these things.
True.
You need to present evidence of these things to us so that we can protect the rights of the public.
That's why we're here, just to make sure.
Which
that
I
all those
appreciate.
questions-
I just wanna make sure we're on the same page, because
Absolutely, absolutely.
I can understand what you're thinking.
But I just wanted to assure them that it was less traffic, and by going down to one as opposed to two, that was the whole idea.
Sure, thank
And
you.
then the service obviously they're gonna provide, I think it's, obviously something for the community, so,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So on the number 2, proposed text amendments.
So I kept just for the exercise here for just going back over from last month's meeting, which is that we're going to look at a number of zoning ordinance potential amendments.
Yeah.
Bill, what we're gonna talk about is continuing our building materials discussion today, touching upon mechanical equipment, as well as looking at signs. I've made some changes in there, and we're gonna walk through some of those. In the coming months, or meetings here soon, I wanna touch upon landscaping, parking, and zoning permits. So with that being said, in, I guess I would say, part 2 of 3, if you will, of what we're calling the building material design guidelines. And as we have discussed, the design guidelines, the purpose and intent is to understand the standards for exterior building materials within the city and architectural cohesion. It's applying to all uses with the exception of 1-family and 2-family residential uses. Keeping in consistency with the table format, which I think is very useful, I have included both the residential R1 and R2, RM1, RM2, the office, business, and mixed use, central business district, and industrial. So the difference being here is that we are either permitting or requiring or not requiring, I could change the table, or not permitting at all a certain architectural feature. So one of the elements that is listed in the current ordinance is arcades. I felt as if that arcade should be a permitted design element in all office, business, and central business district. I know that there was an applicant recently in downtown doing a potential kind of arcade walkthrough type design, so that would be something permitted. I wasn't sure, but we could talk further about whether we want arcades to be permitted or even required. I'm not sure about that. For the multifamily residential districts, I kind of don't really lean either way on that. I guess it could be. It's up to you guys. So I put a question mark and highlighted it there for you. Design. Archways, I believe archways should be required in all the districts at entryways. And with this, we can create a complementary definition of some of these design elements so that there's, further understood, or within this table as well. Moving forward, awnings, I thought they should be permitted in all the districts if people want, if all the applicants want. Columns as well can be permitted in the districts. Community amenities, so this is like, landscaping, clocks, stuff that is improving the quality of life in the community, so they can be permitted in all districts. Decorative cornices, I felt that those should be, maybe a little bit more sympathetic to them, especially in downtowns. I think cornices do have a place in downtowns. But my thought here is, I highlighted it, I'm open to discussion either now or in the future about how we require decorative cornices on buildings.
Just remind me what a cornice is.
So the top part, so you don't have it so flat, just,
Archway, like the decorative arch.
The decorative.
well, the top of the building, the
Yeah.
cornice.
Top of the
On-
building.
Yeah.
Like a
Okay.
crown molding.
They could crown, yeah. And
Okay.
they could be more, different interpretations. They could be more classical or more contemporary. but
It's
something-
kind of like I think of it as the bank building, but what's the church there that's there now? It's like what's on top of that. It doesn't have to be as ornate as that, but
Yeah,
that's
right.
what you're
But
talking
something in
about.
those elements, so you just don't have a hard edge
Okay.
Yeah. Moving forward, projections, I'll talk about this here shortly, about projections and recessions, but they should be permitted in all the districts as well. Roof lines, variation of roof lines, we had that whole image of different roof lines. So we would require roof lines in all the districts to have a variation in architectural style. That roof lines project over the exterior of all walls in buildings to cast a shadow with a minimum of 12 inches, so that we don't have just like a straight roof and then no cornice and just a hard edge. It's just a horrible design element. We have peaked roof lines. I just didn't think that was applicable. It's in the ordinance. I just thought that we're kind of covering it already in roof lines. And then with that being said, we can provide additional information down below in the footers. When it comes to towers, if applicant wishes to provide those are permitted, as well as wall inserts. And lastly, window display areas. That would definitely be something that would be more geared toward the commercial and central business district.
You don't want my single-family residential house to have a window display in the front?
Yeah, I don't. You mean single family?
Yeah.
No, single family is not part of this.
Where am I gonna put my lake statue for Christmas, which is from July?
Well, I'd love to see it, one, but two, I would say that this is just focused on multifamily and higher industrial uses. You're more than welcome to have those things.
So when you didn't put something in there, like where it's a blank space up where the,
Yeah.
I1 and RM1, so if you're putting nothing in there, that's considered, that means it's prohibited, you're not allowing it
My
at all?
thought right now would be that's prohibited, and I can add that to the table there in the corner of.
But it's a P, so are you gonna like pick a different word, or?
Yeah, we
Can't
can
use
work
the
on,
same letter.
we can work on the semantics, for sure. We can say, never.
And then, so under this is under materials, so if something is not under here as a material, that means it's prohibited, right? Or no?
Well, no, we have kind of a thing here that I want to kind of touch upon, and is a comment that Mr. Womack had about, we talked about materials before, that we're going to add, like, consideration of a new material, right? We're going to add that. This here is only talking about not materials, but architectural features. So we're separating the two tables out. They work together, but they're just different elements. And then the third part of this, like I said, I mentioned 2 of 3, we're gonna come back and really get after on colors.
Yeah.
And have that table, that discussion table, what types of colors can be in what districts.
Was there, I thought there was some reference in the materials tonight that you were potentially going to have maybe some, I don't know if you want to say builders, but some type of experts in the area that utilize materials, maybe come and, or at least give us something on what we should be considering?
Yeah, and that was discussed at the last meeting about how we're going to have an area and allow for that type of design flexibility with materials in the ordinance.
So, okay, so we're not gonna have somebody talk to us now before we approve this to know whether we should allow this, a material to be in here or not?
Yeah, well, the list is much longer than it was. It's pretty comprehensive for the most part. And that right now we're referencing back to the item that we talked in the previous meeting. So that would be.
I was embarrassed, so I
Right.
apologize, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So that was discussed. Mr. Womack brought that up as how we put that in there. And so that applicants can bring materials. We're allowing that avenue to come in before the planning commission to share new materials. So we're not just saying no, we're allowing that to come in so that the planning commission can make a decision and essentially set a precedent on how they would handle that material.
Just from a pragmatic point of view, you and I and Ms. Denise Soldensky, sorry, We're having meetings with developers ongoing as a result of some of the other work we're doing. Might be appropriate for us to just talk to those guys and say, hey, is there anything coming down the pipe? Is there any materials that you guys are using that you're finding difficulties with? Because we're trying to hone our planning commission and planning and zoning standards, and that might be a good time to do that.
I think that'd be a great idea.
I think it would be helpful to know what is out there and, you know, and I'm not opposed to the idea that, okay, no material out there is prohibited until we say it's prohibited. But I guess, so you're gonna have a provision, if it's not in, the specific material is not already listed, we're not saying, no, we're going to have you bring the material to the planning commission.
Yeah.
And we're going to do research. I mean, I guess, how are we gonna determine whether that's a good material or not if we don't have any information on it?
It's just like trends and uses that continue to evolve. I think the thing is that the nature of the zoning ordinance is more like there are rules, but the planning commission is stewards of that, and that they should address things as they come about, because it's similar to like uses, whether it was solar facilities or wind turbines. That wasn't even thought of a thing 20 years ago, now it's here, so planning commissioners are addressing it. So I think we're allowing an avenue for the planning commission to consider is what we're gonna do on the chart, so that they can come before you, but we also have items that we either permit or not permit. Like, you know, T111 is one of those items that, you know,
Right.
we just don't permit.
Right, and I get that part, and that's fine, but I'm just saying that when somebody comes here, is our planning firm going to do all the research so that we have the research materials to know whether or not this, we obviously ultimately say whether we're gonna allow the material or not, but, you know, I'm not a building expert, none of us
I
are.
think I've got an answer for you.
Okay,
We put the onus on them to prove it to us. And, you know, we determine based upon what they provided to us, whether we're, you know, sufficiently impressed or not. I can think of a couple avenues. I've had circumstances where they physically brought the material in and we pass it
I
around.
remember.
I've seen circumstances where they say, you know what, we just built a place at whatever address, go check it out there. And it's a public place, and you can walk up to it, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. They could also say, look, you know, here is the industry standard, and provide us with evidence that way. I don't want to tie us into one specific course of action of us being approving it, but we're also going to be in the position of saying, it's on you to show us and convince us.
yeah, because if I mean, you can show me a product, but it doesn't mean I know how it works or whether or not it's gonna last for 10, 20 years. So, I mean, I can tell you that I wouldn't feel comfortable without having research done to approve something that, you know, that's not been approved or permitted already, and that's, you know.
Yeah, so I would
it
say
wouldn't
that
make any
two
sense.
things are just kind of backing Mike on that. It would be the incumbent, as it is always, for the applicant to demonstrate that they're meeting our zoning ordinance for public health, safety, and welfare. Second, if a material does fail, that becomes a zoning violation and there'd be a citation. Like, you know, if the material's falling apart, the building's in disrepair, they would have to come in compliance, and they would have to meet our requirements at that time of materials. And so part of that is, in the language, is whether, you know, durable, weather resistant, you know, weather, materials for our climate.
And they're obviously required to maintain, like you were saying.
Yeah, and they have to maintain that, yeah. So I think we are able to address that. It's always incumbent upon them, and so we're allowing them, before communities would say just no, it's gonna be brick, wood, and stone, and that's all there is. But we're kind of providing all the new stuff that we've seen over the last couple of years, like different cement products and different, you know, fiber materials and glass and metal materials that are, that have come to market are just common now.
Right, but those are gonna actually be listed, right?
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
right.
So they were all there, it was
Right.
several pages, so.
Is paper mache a permitted use? Or cardboard?
Yes, yeah.
Rice paper?
Yep, silk, a whole bit.
Would you want us to address your questions like you're highlighted tonight?
If you do, I know it's a lot to take in. So the idea here was to take this whole part, construct it over a couple meetings, and that, you know, we're not necessarily there to make that decision. I'm happy to take some input, take some notes, just like we had the last meeting, and I can make some notes and we come back and review it when it's ready to move on.
Well,
Public hearing.
I can say for the arcades, I personally would permit it in that one section. And then, the decorative aspects downtown 100% for sure. That almost goes across the board there for me.
Say that again one more time?
Your decorative chronics.
Cornices?
Yeah,
Cornices.
Chronics.
Yeah. Hey, that's the other, that's all.
Yeah, for-
That's a different thing, buddy.
Yeah, for all the cornices, yep.
Yep, so, I 100% feel that should be required for the downtown environment. Industrial, I don't
We
think so.
could put permitted.
Yeah, permitted,
Yeah.
yes. And that's, my only section there, I guess, my point specifically would be required in the downtown.
Yeah,
And so,
I agree.
what about like the RM1, RM2, would that, for cornices, I'm firm on cornices for central business district. I think permitted in all the other districts. If you travel down 24 on Main, you're gonna see a lot of buildings without cornices. So I would say if they want to create that, it's permitted for sure, is my thought.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't allow a residential house to have a cornice?
Well, it's not a matter of so much, is it permitted, it's more of a, if it's required, they would have to have it. So what we're having here is RM1, RM2, which is the multifamily. Single family 1 and 2 is exempt from this.
But like for office space, okay, so you're saying, I'm not really sure because we don't have that down 24, but aren't we looking forward, like future-wise, what we
Yeah.
want to see? So you could, doesn't mean that we have to.
Yeah.
We could require it in the business, district. I mean, you put ours across here, I'm not sure.
I highlighted ours. My suggestion would be that central business district has to have it. That's, but I would be comfortable with doing permitted in all the other districts because,
I'm fine with that.
yeah,
That's kind of-
cornices.
Great.
Next one was,
Landscaping?
no, that's a whole different section.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, so going back on that, I wanted to talk about, just as a side note you'll see here just at the bottom, general exceptions, dimension requirements. I know we had this whole item here about projections. And what I want to do is note that to the exceptions, which is in almost every zoning ordinance, which reads as the following, and I'm not doing a good job because it's super small, that's my fault. But anything that kind of protrudes, like a building, chimney, church, fire escape, you can, those kind of elements, it's already in the ordinance. So saying it's permitted, we're understanding that in the design elements because it might get lost. And it already kind of exists, and so I would footnote it to the chapter that already exists, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. So I wanted to just highlight that there. It's not going in this chapter. We're going to hyperlink it to where it already exists for the most part. So that when you think of chimneys, you're not going somewhere else. It's leading you there, kind of by design. So I just want to bring that up.
Okay.
Moving forward, mechanical equipment, I know this has been talked about, we've had applicants, struggle with this part. It's a small amendment, but I think it's gonna be important. So in the highlighted section here, you see that we wanted to kind of integrate this into design. It's been more of a fence product of recently. And so we want this to be the same color and materials as the facade. And this includes any rooftop equipment invisible from the front, from the right-of-way or any residential use or district. It's been a common thing we've seen it a lot, and it's been either a fence or some sort of landscaping. I don't like landscaping because technically the heat or cold that generates from that just kills any vegetation. So it doesn't really do much for noise if there's noise. And this way, we're going to be able to, we've had applicants be considerate and paint so it matches, doesn't stand out, but it's been typically just rough cut wood. type of stuff, and I want to move away from that. So this was an amendment that I think would help us in that direction. Small, but it does do a lot in terms of quality of life and the district aesthetics, you know. Any other questions on that?
No, I agree with you.
Sounds good.
Okay, wonderful. Signs, this could be a whole
Could be a
university
4-week session.
dissertation, this could be a law school topic. Maybe we'll be teaching this at Michigan University, I think, sometime soon.
No, thank you. We spent, I think, 18 months working on our sign ordinance in Cedar. It was during COVID,
Yeah.
so it took some time, but this is not an easy topic.
No.
Now, on top of the legalities and the difficulties, this is one of those things that no matter what you do, the businesses will not be happy with it.
Right, so I think the thing is here is I've provided you, just before I go into a preface, is that this is based on some of the feedback we received from businesses and other folks on signage. So, you know, as part of the process, it has to come before the planning commission for me to get feedback on kind of the direction of what it is that you guys would like to see. So, rather than having a complete other rewrite, I think you have good bones, if you will, and that I've added a few things, removed a few things, so that we can address some of the comments that we received from businesses and property owners. With that being said, there was, in the temporary signs, we have created a new subsection here in 1702 regarding banners, flag signs, temporary signs, that is, not exceeding 64 square inches or a height of 10 feet, and only allowed 1 per lot or 2 on a corner, depending on the design or placement of the building. So this is banner signs, and they can't be erected for more than 6 months, any 1-year period. Signs advertising a property for sale or lease may remain until the property is sold. Common practice, that is, and the sign must be removed within 7 days of all units or lots being sold or leased. This is coming out of what is the next highlighted area that you've seen, is removing out of the table of the temporary sign regulations there, which we have, you know, freestanding signs, the height. So we're moving that out of temporary signs and sign permits into a sign category that is not requiring a permit. It's just kind of allowing businesses or property owners to go through that process without a sign permit.
So if I could just speak on this for a second. So, you know, at Cedar, we tried to go more business friendly. We tried to allow more temporary type signs. And we basically allowed banner signs. And, you know, we thought that was gonna work out. The problem with the banner signs, though, is they tend to fall over the wind. They tend to fall down and not, you know, be picked back up. And I think they tend to look junky after 2 or 3 days, honestly, because they try to make them taut between 2 bars, right? They just crinkle on themselves. So I personally hate feather signs. I think feather signs are horrendous, but they tend to stay upright. They tend to be taut themselves based on their design. And frankly, the businesses love feather signs. Would we be better off saying banner signs still require a permit and would we allow feather signs instead?
Yeah, we can definitely delineate between feather signs and what that term is, and banner signs, if you like. I'm open
I
to.
guess that's a question for the board, if you guys are familiar with these types of signs, but.
So do a picture of, what's a feather sign?
Other side of the long, the ones that
It's
stick
the
up like
stick-
6 foot.
And they're like really like narrow and they flat.
And they're always
Okay.
put in a spot that creates a blind spot. That's been
That's what I was
our
gonna
problem
ask,
with
was-
it. It's,
Yeah, but the banner signs fall down and they get crinkled up and I think they look junky.
Well, well, let me talk for a second if I can. Would we allow them to be, I don't know, backed off the road? Like, is there measurements that we'd have to
So
require for that?
Yeah, they cannot be placed in the road right away. That's always a requirement.
Is it already written in our?
Yeah, And so they have to be placed on the property side of the sidewalk if one exists. And Mr. Hagedorn enforces that. But this is more about what types of signs do we want to see? Because think about it for half a second. If we say a feather sign is permitted without a permit, but a banner sign requires a permit, which costs, $80 or something, what do you think all the businesses are gonna do? They're all gonna put feather signs up. So we have a chance to influence what types of signs we want to see in this community. And of course, it would require, I think, commission approval, right? City commission approval?
Yeah, you would. So I think with that being said, if I move back up a slide, we've moved this, and based on Mr. Womack's comments, what we're saying here is that the banners would go back to a temporary sign that needs a permit, correct?
Well, the header up there says signs not requiring a permit.
Right, but this is an addition that was a.
Yeah, so you're removing it out of the permits, putting it where it does not require a permit. And I'm just saying, depending on what the board wants, I just think banner signs are bad temporary signs. And if we're gonna allow temporary signs without permits, we should encourage them to put up the temporary signs we want them to put out.
Okay.
So what's a flag sign versus a feather sign? Because you got flag signs here too.
At least my understanding is it's literally what you think of as an American flag, but instead of an American flag, it's come by Joe's stuff. And it's usually on the building itself. Which, isn't that a permitted thing already?
I didn't think it was on the, okay, I was thinking it was something else. So it's something that's actually not on a poster.
I think flags
stick.
and
It's just
feathers
a,
are the same.
it's a piece of, it looks like a flag, but it's attached to your building. That's what a flag sign is?
So when I'm thinking of flag signs, they're just like these, they're not attached to the building. My interpretation, this is why signs can be so, such a topic.
I think we need to
Is that
define these signs.
Banner
actually.
signs would be something temporary that you may possibly attach to your building, like grand opening, right? So, to understand, we want banner signs to either not be allowed at all, or move back into where it was recently, where it was in this category here of temporary signs.
Well,
That needs a permit.
I think the board needs, I think this is a good discussion, but I
Yeah.
think the board needs to take some time to research what all these signs look
Yes,
like.
I agree.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And that, okay, so that would be, we would deconstruct this potential addition into banner and flag, and then what is banner? I mean, what is flag, because, not just a flag that stands in your building, but I'm thinking of this, a temporary, like, one of those heavy bottoms that holds a sign that, that you see with a lot of like grand openings or promotional type
Right,
stuff.
and
Is that
that's-
what I'm understanding?
And that's what I thought, but then he said feather sign, I'm like, was that the same thing as a flag sign?
I think the
I-
building department has always considered flag and feather the same type of sign.
I have too, because the way I think of the interpretation, the definition would be something that moves in the wind or
Right.
lays there that is attached to a post or pole or whatever you want to call it. So I've always understood it's kind of the same, the same, just semantics of.
Our sign ordinance is fun. This is why I had 18 months and anyways. Yeah, I think this is a good discussion, but let's all do some independent research on this, because otherwise we're gonna be here until midnight.
Yep, okay, so just I'm gonna move forward through this here. Monument signs, we've added the language here to make it a little more, to make it clearer, because we get this question a lot. Sorry, I have both in here for me. So I added the text here that if we know 8 foot maximum, but that is to also include the base of the sign, the total height.
Yes, that
Because
will
we get
help.
folks that say, oh, I got a base of 3 feet,
Yes.
and then the sign's 8, and we have like,
Yeah.
right, we have like almost a building, right?
That's like,
So-
that was like an ongoing question at the ZBA, that like, okay, does that include it or not included, and, yeah.
Right. Going back to schedule of sign regulations, window signs, it's, come to my knowledge, it's been a challenge. Currently, you have a 25% maximum of the window area. We've had some feedback from law enforcement staff of saying that if you go downtown, I'll just maybe back up a step. If you go downtown, you'll see a mix of signages in windows, whether it's the whole window, part of the window, or nothing in the window. And it just becomes a challenge with measuring it and going back to applicants. It's very consuming. So the thought would be possibly letting businesses, to their own discretion, decide how much signage they want in the window. And that as long as they're not covering the entrances to the door for public safety reasons. So we're removing the 25%, we're leaving NA, and that the businesses can decide how much window signage they wish to have.
You wanna know another fun thing on those monument signs? They'll also build up the ground underneath the base, and then put the base and then the sign. So you've got a, 10-foot tall, mount that they put it on.
So the sign company has an excavation and earth moving company at the same time.
Just saying, I've seen it.
And landscaping and sod.
And they'll put an antenna on top that's 30 feet tall.
That's right. So we have window signage here, that's an item for the planning commission to review. Moving forward, I added this comment here, based on some, we can expand upon it. But the idea here is a reserve section, and we want to provide an area here to maybe clarify some of the language regarding content of signs. But with that being said, that we can, below here, you can see general requirements of all signs. You don't put it on the sheet in section 1709. It talks about how signs can't be a traffic hazard or create distractions for public safety. Furthermore, this reserve section, I thought it'd be a substitution clause. So it talks about the fact that signs can have non-commercial content, part of free speech amendments. So this is based upon, not that I'm an attorney, but there is significant, literature out there in the state of Michigan, how the court at the federal level and even in Michigan has decided on that type of issues of content-based law. So I thought it'd be appropriate to add something along those lines, and so here's a sample of what I provided. I know there's.
Alice, what are you trying to accomplish with this?
Make sure that we're understanding clearly in the sign ordinance that non-commercial speech is permitted in businesses. But there's another component to that about the sign, or if it's a temporary sign, or if it's a permanent sign. So it's more of a discussion topic. I'm not providing the final text on here, but that's kind of along the lines of.
You can't prohibit content. I mean, that's really, you're just trying to indicate what we're not allowed to do by law.
Yeah, based on
Okay.
the court cases that have come up. However, with that being said, you do have significant provisions in your general requirements for all signs that, the signs can't then create a safety concern.
Right, but then you're not determining it based upon content, you're doing it based upon whatever the zoning ordinance requires. You're not discriminating based upon content, it's something that
Right.
everybody else has.
Time, place, size restrictions,
Yes,
really.
right.
Yeah.
Instead of this, could we just put the whole text from Reed versus Gilbert in there?
Yeah, it's right here, actually, I have it printed out, it's another like 5 pages. Yeah, we could definitely do that, yeah, Reed versus Town of Gilbert. We could definitely work on that,
Okay.
yeah.
Would that include both the majority holding and the concurrence and the minority opinion?
Is that the last one? I thought it was the last one.
Yes, it is.
Whew, thank goodness.
So here's what we're talking about landscaping now?
Joint meeting topic, and of course we have, sorry, Chair, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was making it funny. You're good.
Yeah.
No, he's great.
Sorry?
He was making funny. You're not catching on to the joke. Let's move on to joint meeting.
Yeah, joint meeting topics. No, it's all.
Come on, tell me.
Actually, I didn't know what it, oh, it said you want to talk about landscaping now.
He said
Oh,
you're
yeah,
good.
going back
No,
to that.
yeah,
He said you're good, and Mike said, no, he's great.
Oh, yeah.
See, layers upon layers of jokes in this.
So we are now to joint meeting topics.
So, we already did this at the DDA, but I think that one of the topics should be, so I guess I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't go, because I already got to,
So if it's the, what do the boards do, the staff's already.
no, I don't want that, it wasn't that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wasn't gonna do that. I was going to talk about really some of these things we just talked about. I think like, I know from the DDA standpoint, they need to understand from here, what the thought process is in going through like, you know, what building materials are required or permitted in the downtown. Because obviously there's building going on and sometimes, you know, there are some that sit here and go, you know, why is that the way it is? Do they understand that this is going on downtown? So maybe just understanding like some of the, so this is going a little bit to what you're saying, but I think specifically to some of those requirements that we have to look at in determining whether or not somebody can use a particular material, a particular color. I mean, some of those type of requirements would be helpful to talk about in this joint meeting.
You want to have the same conversation we just had, but with like 30 other people who are not on this board?
Yeah, because I think they don't understand that's what we wrestle with. I do. I mean, it doesn't have to, maybe you could pick a couple of those. But I think it's important because I feel like there's a disconnect between these boards. And we operate in silos, not because we want to, because that's just the way that life works sometimes. But it would be really helpful for all of us on these various commissions to understand, you know, what we do and why we have to do it. Well, why are we sitting here deciding whether this person can put up this material and the next one it's okay? They're like, you know, if you don't sit on the planning commission, you don't know that. So I think it would be helpful to have that kind of conversation. And again, not just to indicate this is what it is. While I think that's important to have the educational part, I think at least the ones that, the DDA that I'm on as well, is looking forward to the dialogue between all of us, to having those conversations where we can talk to each other, listen to each other. And I know that's probably a Pollyanna outlook, but I think if you don't start that dialogue, it's never gonna happen. So.
I think there's just a lot hidden in the start that dialogue. I don't know what that consists of, and I think you're looking to put 10 gallons into a 5-gallon hat. But that being said, one of the things that did come up at the DDA meeting was a discussion about, well, what do the other boards do? And maybe that's a good starting point, because, you know, I do all of these things, so I tend to understand them all, but I know that a lot of people who may sit on the DDA board may not know what we do here at the Planning Commission.
And I think that's a great idea that we start at that point, but again, I don't want it to be, no offense to you, Alex, or to you, Mike, I don't want this to be a session where, you know, somebody puts on a presentation and at the end it's like, are there any questions? That's not the point of having a joint meeting. It's to allow the members of those commissions to have dialogue. And if it's just on that, that's great. That's a starting point, and we can have another meeting later on. But I think that you have to allow people to interact, because we can sit there and we all can listen and we can ask questions. Do I really know what happens, you know, I mean, I guess I can't answer this question because I've been on all of them, but, you know, does somebody on the DDA really know then what this commission over here, what their thinking is? You know, because you can say what's their responsibilities as a planning commissioner. It doesn't mean that, I mean, I don't know. You don't know what Jeff's thinking when he's sitting there thinking about, you know, what materials he likes and what he doesn't like, what his thought process is into deciding, you know, how this standard meets one of the sign requirements. I don't know, I just think that the dialogue is important. So we can agree to disagree, but I think you have to You have to start the dialogue, even if it's in small increments.
So your thoughts and goals are laudable, and, you know, again, I listen to all these things because I want to know what all the boards are thinking. I go to the DDA board meetings because I want to know what they're thinking. But you cannot shrink every meeting that you've had for the last X number of years on this board and all the thought processes and all of our minds into one joint session.
No, you can't.
I mean, I appreciate Ms. Petrie being here because she's been coming to all these planning commission meetings,
Right.
because I think she wants to understand what we're doing here. So I think that helps her with her job on both the ZBA and city commission, and how many other boards are you on? Those,
None that you guys care about.
oh, okay, but if,
None
if,
that affect the city.
if these board members truly wanted to know what our thoughts were, they're welcome to come to this meeting. And I just don't think that having a 2 or 3 hour meeting, a joint meeting, is gonna give everybody on all the boards, all of our impressions about everything we do. I just think that's too much.
Well, I disagree, and I think that if we have a joint meeting, which obviously we are, because that's what we're gonna do, and it's the same format as it was at the, what do you call it? Goals and objectives? No, not goals and objectives. What the meeting was that we had last year at the rec center.
Yep,
I
joint
think
meeting.
I think there's gonna be some disappointed people, and there's gonna be quite a few, because I've gotten the feedback that it's just not, it's not helpful. And it doesn't mean that they don't appreciate the information. I mean, that was it was helpful, but it's not what they need.
There's too many.
Mr. Chair, would you like to hear from Ms. Petrie?
Yes, but quickly, because we still have a lot to go over.
I'm just seeing what Catherine's saying. I think that if we had open dialogue, like, well, when we say this, then you guys did that, so what was your thinking on doing that? It's just almost a clarification with each other, instead of just everybody staying in their lane and listening to their own rules. We wanna know, like, when I'm on the ZBA and it already came to the planning commission, I'm like, well, why is it coming to me if that's not in the, they already said no, planning commission already said no, and I know that they're appealing. But I'd like to know more, and that's why I'm coming, so that I can do a better job at the appeal. But same with DDA, there's things that Jim and that committee needs or knows, that as a city commissioner, I'm like, oh, well, okay, so I just think it's a good, I think we need to have clarification with each other.
Definitely, I would, so, we're obviously getting topics right now, right? We're just throwing out topic ideas, is that what we're kind of doing?
Well, the whole point of this exercise is, I believe on Ms. Bostic's recommendation, we're having an open dialogue at this next one. There's gonna be significantly less educational component to it, because that's what has been expressed to me, and I've asked Ms. Hodge to put this on all her boards. We've discussed it at the city commission
Okay.
level as well.
All right, so open dialogue conversation at the joint meeting on what roles of each commission or board does. Sounds like a long time. All right, any other discussion on this? All right, so we will go to the Capital Improvement Program, CIP, from 2000. You get to take over this one now, don't you?
Is it in? I've never seen it. Oh, I just bring mine. Let me go grab it out of my office.
Yeah. Oh, look at yours, it's fancy. How did you get that? I know how you got that.
Oh, this, yours, mine's big.
Because you're a VIP city. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, that's Mayor Pro Tem right there.
I don't know what they gave me.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're Mayor Pro Tem.
Big bulky.
So
book.
can I ask you a question? This is on the record too, it's kind of funny. Do you have them all set up in a book cabinet?
No, they're all in my
Yourself?
office, like scattered
Okay.
everywhere.
So that was on.
So if I do
it's
need
in the
a like
minutes.
reference, I can go online and.
Yes. All right.
I'm terrible at record
Everything record line is way better.
All right, so I don't know what the tradition and past history has been with the planning commission reviewing and approving of the capital improvement plan. Has this been traditionally done over one meeting, two meetings?
This has been done in one meeting. Last time you went through the summary. In previous meetings, they went over just the map.
What I recall is basically summaries and very high, yep, the summaries and the highlights and that map right there that pretty much dissects everything that you,
Right,
that's
this is
going.
the current year plans, and then I think last year Mikey went over the summary itself.
And I do think that at times there were some like things that he would highlight, like in the detailed sections that were like kind of prominent, that were coming up that, you know, that he would want us to know was coming down the pike. But otherwise, you're right, it was the summaries and the map that we would stick to.
The map summarizes it very well, though.
Yes.
Trying to find a good start here. All right, so, yeah, let's start at the map, and then I can kind of walk you through some of the changes that have maybe occurred, to kind of give you an idea about how some of the stuff has moved around a little bit. All right, so we're looking at the map. It's page 12 of 174, capital improvement plan. So we're looking at the total 25-26 CIP, approximately $10,407,000. You're gonna see on there a significant amount of that money is, let's see here, local streets, $1.6 million, major streets, $4.6 million, plus sidewalks, $170. Yeah, I think what you're seeing is you're seeing a shift towards more money being put into the streets and the local major streets, which I think is something that was kind of requested from the general public and from the boards. So this is obviously all still high level. Vehicles and equipment, you got plow assemblies, $10,000, a couple of police vehicles being replaced at $130. Bucket truck, $240. Ms. Hodge, do you remember if we put some of that money aside from the previous year
For,
for the bucket truck? I can't remember if we put money aside on that or
I do not know.
Okay. So approximately $240,000 for a bucket truck. I just couldn't remember if we had put some of that money aside the previous year, kind of to split the cost in half or not. Gator utility vehicle for the wastewater treatment plant. Computer workstations, 25,000. Toolboxes, 22,000. A vacuum truck, $638,000. I believe 300,000 of that is going to be taken care of as part of the sale of the previous vac truck. So it's actually only going to cost the city about $630,000. I'm sorry, $330,000. Half-ton pickup truck, only $48,000. That's a steal compared to the 3/4 and the 1 tons that we buy. Sewer camera, I know it says 110, but I've been working with Mr. Slusher to get that down to less. It's shocking how expensive those sewer cameras can get. Election equipment, $20,000, but I believe the clerk is able to get a reimbursement for a lot of that stuff. Let's see here, infrastructure and continuing initiatives, $40,000 for traffic signal maintenance, $50,000 for sidewalk repair and maintenance, although we almost certainly are going to spend more than that. That stretch of sidewalk over by the dog park that was just completed, that was $45,000 by itself. Manhole coring, so one of the new engineering standards I'm requiring is that we have manholes are surrounded by asphalt, but those are going to be cored out, replaced with concrete, which is significantly less likely to sink, so we don't have those bumps in the road. Then you see scrub seal and micro seal is going to be $60,000 per major and local. All right, so kind of going around the map here. First Street reconstruction, $782,000. Second Street reconstruction, $811,000. The issue there right now is special assessments. Commission is having hard thoughts about how they want to deal with special assessments. Tree trimming in the cemetery, you know, they do that every year. City Hall ADA entrance, we originally looked at the front of City Hall, replacing those steps and replacing that whole area with double swing wide doors. That was gonna be, I think, between $50,000 and $70,000 to do that. This way, we're gonna make the back door ADA compliant, and then we're just gonna replace the concrete steps. So it's gonna be substantially cheaper. Public safety department, fire hoses and nozzles, that's something that those fire guys need. Signage, we're gonna replace that old type of sign with a more updated type of sign that you saw at the rec center just recently. Ballistic body armor, those are coming to their end of life date, so they gotta replace those. Police badges, I kinda talked them down from 15,000 down to 9,000. I think they're gonna, what they say is that the current badges are what security guards use. They wanna have professional looking badges. Flock security cameras, we just had a presentation at the city council level about that. Those are license plate readers that will notify the local police agency if there's a stolen car, if there's a senior citizen who's got lost and, you know, left their community, et cetera, stuff like that. I think we're gonna have to do some public campaigning on why that's both good and is not a, you know, facial recognition system or something like that.
Well, right, like, yeah, I could see that being potentially an issue.
Yeah, so the only places where these are gonna be like taking pictures are in the middle of the road, you know, by like the expressway entrance.
Okay.
So you really shouldn't be walking there anyways, right?
Right.
But even if you do, the computer programming doesn't do facial recognition. It only does license plate recognition. So I, you know, as a recovering defense attorney, I obviously have my own concerns, but
Profiling here?
yeah, but, you know, all the information I'm seeing, I'm generally in favor of it. M24 pedestrian connection, that's the tunnel to somewhere, right, Mr.? Yeah. Yep. Tunnel to somewhere. It's a huge portion of that is gonna be paid for through grant money. Well pump at well 2, 47, I think they're reconstruction and reconditioning and making sure that that's all fit and set ready to be used in an emergency. Community center, they want to put a pavilion out back. They do a lot of summer programming out there for kids. They want to have some sunshade and cover out there. That's going to be where the first volleyball court is, next to the freshly done asphalt. By the way, pickleball and basketball now they're there now if you haven't been out there recently. Potential expansion and potential city hall study, $30,000. So we're looking, you know, 3, 5, 10 years out. One of the complaints I've heard from people is that they think the current community center is not sized appropriately and they'd like it to be expanded and, you know, all sorts of things. So we put $30,000 into the budget this year to at least do a study on what future needs might be for the city. Because the city owns the community center, the parking lot, and then that whole property to the north as well. So there's a chance that we can create a campus out there. But there's gonna be a lot of stuff that goes into it. How big is it gonna be and how much of it is it gonna be city hall versus a rec center? Is there sufficient parking? Is, you know, all sorts of things. So right now, we're just proposing that there is a study done and then in a future CIP, we have, I think it was 9 or 10 million, just as a placeholder for right now. Water slide and staircase, I know the total thing's gonna be about 200,000. I think 51 is engineering for it. That's being paid for through a donation of bequeathment. Boilers, $400,000. Man, it's shocking how expensive those things are. But that's being paid for, I think, entirely through the TIF district. DPW lean-to fire suppression. So the lean-to itself was paid for under a previous budget. Then the fire department says, hey, did you know you have to put fire suppression out there? So that's gonna cost another $35,000. Genesee Street reconstruction, engineering $200,000, and then Genesee Street bridge replacement, $4.3 million. Again, mostly paid for through grant money. And then the city commission just on Monday approved a couple of studies where the Rose going to look at a pedestrian crossing between Crampton and what's that pizza place right there? Hungry Howie's, yeah. Trying to figure out a way to make a very safe pedestrian crossing for people to get from the downtown to Crampton Park. Then from Crampton Park, they can go through the bridge to tunnel to somewhere. Center for the Arts Improvement, they always get $10,000 for whatever issues come up throughout the year. Downtown sidewalk improvements, so if you guys have been through the downtown recently, you see that the brickwork is kind of slanted in towards the curb. Becomes a place where dirt, grime, junk just accumulates. And then weeds and stuff literally grow on the sidewalk, which is just horrible. But in addition to that, it presents a tripping hazard. So we're looking at either replacing all the brick or having a brick be brought up to standards so that it's no longer a tripping hazard. 18 Nipissing Street, that's an ongoing thing. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be a can kicked down the road by the city commission. It would cost approximately $200,000 to demolish it, which would be then required if we were going to turn that into a public space. Current hope is that we would turn it into a street level deck overlooking the river, but a very expensive project, and I just think with the budget the way it is, they're going to probably nix that project.
That's too bad.
Yeah, same thing with the water tower though. We put money in the budget for the water tower to be demoed, and we just couldn't get a decent price. So we do still have to fix that, but for the time being, I think the water tower will stay upright. And then, I don't know if you guys want me to go through all the wastewater treatment plant stuff, because I just barely understand most of it, but
We're good.
it costs a lot of money to maintain that plant. So, there's all of that. If you really are interested in where the funding sources are for this stuff, you can look at page 13. But thank goodness for Kelly Hanna. She makes it all work. And then you can kind of see the summary by category on 14 to kind of see what we're spending all the money on. Obviously, a huge amount of money being spent on the local roads and major streets. And then, we can get into the category funding sources if you want. But the significant addition I already commented on, and that was the addition of the potential for a city hall / community center expansion. I forget where that's at exactly. But, this is one of those things where I think I need to tamp down expectations. Currently, we're looking at just a study to see what's necessary. So if you guys aren't familiar, the city has buildings kind of all over the city, and they're kind of all inadequate for our purposes. We've got people in every little nook and cranny, and they just don't have enough space, and this building's, 150 years old? But we're also looking at the future use of the city. So the center building, if you're not familiar with it, not in great condition. And the organization that runs that, I think they've got funding issues. And I just don't know if that building is going to be usable into the future. We've also got people who feel very strongly about their ability to use indoor space for pickleball or whatever else programming that the Parks and Rec Department might have. On top of that, things like flea markets and whatever else, there just isn't very good public space available for that type of use. So I just think it's worth exploring. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I don't think it would be palatable to the public if we had to impose any type of tax. So we're working to find ways to fund that type of thing into the future through grant money, grant sources. The other major thing that you guys probably should be aware of is the local streets and major streets. We've moved some of those projects around. So First Street was on the CIP for I think 26, 27. We moved that up 1 year for various reasons, which I don't want to get into. But we also made the determination that there was going to be a significant cost savings if we did First Street and Second Street at the same time. Because mobilization can cost 10 to 15% of the total project. So those streets are both in pretty bad shape. First is in worse condition, but if we're going to save 15% on Second Street, I'd rather do it now. You guys are also obviously aware of the Pine Street and Park Street project along with parking lot number 9, I think, north side of Nipissing downtown businesses.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a huge transformation of the downtown. You combine that with the brickwork that we're planning on fixing, I think it's going to be transformative for the downtown aesthetics. And then obviously the Genesee Street project, they're gonna be redoing the bridge, which is gonna close Genesee Street down for probably an entire summer. We're trying to figure out a way to do the reconstruction of Genesee as well at the same time, so that we don't end up closing the road for 2 summers in a row. We're hoping to do it all at the same time. So you got the bridge work, and then we're gonna try, I think it's a sewer pipe that runs through there that we wanna replace. So what's gonna end up happening is it's 4 lanes. We're gonna replace sewer pipe down one of the lanes, so that's a full reconstruction. Then the other 3 lanes will become more of a mill and fill resurfacing. But, as the city council just approved a study, we're also looking at potential for turning into a road diet. So on the west side of M24, we already went to the road diet, 3 lanes. But this is more of a commercial corridor. So we need to figure out whether a road diet would work. But a road diet would be great for a pedestrian crossing.
Could put water down there too, right? Water main down Genesee?
I can't remember if it's water or sewer. If you're saying water, then it's probably
Water,
water.
definitely. Yeah.
Is there not water along Genesee?
Well, it's horrible shape.
Yeah, you probably know better than I do.
So do you know what are they gonna do when they shut that down? Where is it gonna be, where's the detour gonna go? People are coming from eastbound on 21.
Yeah, so, there's gonna be.
Maybe you don't know.
Well, so there are factors that go into what constitutes an appropriate, bypass route. It has to have certain angles for the trucks to be able to make turns and
Right.
stuff. So probably Saginaw to Oregon is my guess, or Saginaw to Nipissing.
No trucks are allowed on Oregon.
Yeah, no trucks
Okay,
are
so-
allowed.
Go down
So
McCormick
maybe
to Mill.
McCormick.
It'd be a hot mess.
Yeah, McCormick, and yeah, it's gonna be a
It's
mess.
gonna be a mess.
Yeah, people want their roads fixed, they just don't wanna be in the construction that has to be done to fix
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
You just do all the work at night.
I think that's the road.
Yeah, but I mean, that's my big concern is I just don't know if it's possible to do both the bridge and the road reconstruct at the same time, but man, having that road down for 2 summers in a row, not a pleasant thought.
Especially when there's Lapeer days, I guess. Can you imagine that?
So that's not really in this CIP, but we're still working to put in that green space down in that parking lot. And we're having ongoing discussions with the Lapeer Day folks about that. Trail expansion for Oakdale, that's $40,000. Some other things on the parks budget, little minor stuff. They do have $80,000 listed for a disc golf course. I can't imagine it would actually cost that much money. So you see 9 million here in 26-27. That's the anticipated potential expansion of City Hall. I think that's just a placeholder. Cardio fitness, the Kiwanis Inclusive Playground, that's listed here at 1.1. I think it's actually 1.2 at this point. They're doing pretty good though. Anyone got a current number for what they're at? I heard they were close to $800,000 or $900,000. Pump track, has anyone heard anything about the pump track?
No, so there was an update, they met with, about the drainage of the new location. The new location kind of put everything on hold.
Okay, well, so I already kind of talked about the 25-26 CIP. So 26-27 CIP, ceiling tiles, fire truck bay floors, not very exciting stuff. SCBA's, that's gonna be a huge grant. I think they're getting 400 out of 450 for a grant, that's great. Heavy rescue vehicles, another thing that we've started doing here in the city is, I don't know why they did this, but apparently previously they never really funded for fire trucks. When they needed a fire truck, they just kind of found the money. We've taken a different approach. I think we're putting $200,000-ish, maybe $400,000 aside each year for the purchase of those vehicles. So it shouldn't be nearly as much of a surprise in the future.
I think TIF usually helps out.
Sure, but we're planning for it now instead. Yeah, thank goodness for the TIF report. And you'll see another fire engine replacement already in 27, 28. Again, wastewater treatment, like I understand when they point it out to me and say, oh, that's the thing, but I couldn't talk you guys through it. If you wanted to in the future, maybe we should have somebody who can come on a more educated basis to discuss these things. The city commission gets that benefit, but unfortunately you guys do not. Cormac lift station, $900,000 in 26, 27, that's gonna be, what?
They already think that I get the high ground because of my booklet. Now you're saying I get more bougie treatment?
You do get bougie treatment, also I have a booklet. You gotta yell at Kim, Kim, did you put these together?
No, I did the map though.
The map was great, thank you. All right, so I think, went through everything from a high-level perspective. Is there anything that you guys had thoughts, questions, or concerns about?
I think if you keep the city hall park community center expansion in the next year, you're gonna freak people out.
Should we move it further out as a placeholder? Because I didn't tell Kelly to put it there. I did say put it in as a placeholder. And frankly, I don't know if $9 million is gonna be sufficient. But, you know, there's no place to put it there, $9 million, if we can find $9 million, right?
Well, you have it under TIF 1 paying for $9 million. I don't know how that's gonna work.
TIF 1 doesn't have
I was gonna say,
$9
do they have 9
It
million?
might freak out the board and.
Yeah, the TIF board.
community.
No, so we had a TIF board meeting, yesterday.
Did they say anything?
No, matter of fact, they're focused on.
By the way, you're giving us $9 million.
They're focused on the Kiwanis playground. No, that's a good point. It probably should be moved out probably to the last 30, 31. Now, we can always move these around within the CIP based upon funding. But you're right. I don't want people freaking out thinking that we're gonna have $9 million next year. No.
We did buy that property in the house in lieu of expansion
What do you mean in lieu of expansion?
of the rec center.
Okay, what do you mean in lieu of?
We-
Because you
Well,
thought you were gonna do it.
Yeah,
With the intention of?
yes.
Okay. In lieu of means instead of.
Well, I'm not smart as you.
That's what, I was confused. Now my wife is saying, where are you?
Catherine, what I meant.
I knew what you were saying. I've heard people use the word not
So it's
correctly.
not.
I knew what
it's
you
not-
meant.
I've heard it used incorrectly my whole life.
Possibly.
Wow.
Anyways,
I got so many questions.
So your point is well taken, that perhaps we should move the actual huge dollar amount out of soon, put it in a distant date. But I still think the study is important, and not just about City Hall. I mean, we've got a storage barn over by White Junior High that, is not weather safe, that we have paperwork in. We've got a building over in front of the Amtrak station, which is vacant and not being used. We've just got a bunch of city properties that I think need to be consolidated and put to better use. I'd love to see like an attorney's office or something in that building by Amtrak. We don't have any use for it. But we also have a couple of people here who are just scrunched together and don't have space to work or store their important paperwork. We're obligated to save, all sorts of papers. We just don't have space for it.
What
Plus-
about a startup coffee shop in that little building?
Whatever.
What have you got against attorneys?
Well,
They're
I'm
horrible,
saying,
horrible people.
We got a lot of them.
We have a lot, we don't have that many.
Well, they're gonna need a drive-through if they go over there, so.
No,
Plus,
plus walk up.
plus Alex needs a corner office.
He's fine.
The first thing,
Kim is
first
so
thing I
far.
said was coffee, drive-through, special lady.
I didn't say drive-through.
So Alex's office looks out on the beautiful alleyway next to.
But it's within shouting distance from my
Yeah,
desk.
I mean, more discussion back there.
It's better.
There's dialogue going on.
Any other thoughts, questions, or concerns?
No,
Okay, none.
very
Does
good
the
report.
PC get paid by the meeting or the hour?
Oh, we gonna start getting paid?
By the minute.
Oh, that per diems would be nice.
So one of the last things I did in Cedar was we got payments for the planning commission members. It was a per meeting payment.
Great segue.
So
Did
is
you
that
pay
in
you to
there?
say that?
That's in here?
That is not on the agenda.
Not that I never started this because you're getting paid.
Well, no,
Would be
no,
incentive.
but, you know, do you use your gas to get here? Do you
Absolutely.
use your
I mean-
ink on your computer to print things out? Do you, it's not to make you rich, it's to prevent you from spending your money on the city's
Yeah.
work. That's my opinion. So are you looking for a motion to make a recommendation with the change as proposed by Mr. Adler?
So yes, we do have to do a memo, a motion and a memo that gets put in the book. So I'm wondering, are you making that change then to move it to 3031?
Well, so I guess, Mr. Atwood, what would you propose for that change?
Shoot, what page is it on?
It's probably in like 6 places.
It's 19.
Yeah, I would move it out as far executed.
So move the actual proposed construction date and dollar amount into the latest 3031 CIP location?
Is that too far?
No, like I said, we can move
It's
things
gonna take a
around.
while to figure out
So it takes time to find financing
and convince
and convince people. Yeah.
people.
And we got all sorts of plans.
You gotta draw the picture. Dialogue. Need time for dialogue.
Dialogue, we need time for
Right.
dialogue.
I'll make a motion that we make the amendment, text amendment, to move it out
Your
to,
motion, you have to adopt it
Oh,
with the amendment.
yeah, I'll adopt the CIP with the amendment of moving out the
City Hall.
City Hall expansion, isn't it expansion?
Community center
Well,
slash
community
city
center,
hall.
yeah.
Yep, so City Hall / community center expansion to the latest date.
Do you need a recommendation of the city council as well?
Well, this is just the, planning commission adopts it,
Okay.
and then the city commission ultimately approves the budget.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the board, any support? On the table, sorry.
Support.
We got support on that, any discussion? Yes, sir.
Should we throw something in for a study for the future, Sebastian,
So,
first?
yeah, so there is money in this year's budget for that study.
Okay,
Yeah.
I missed that part, sorry.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. All right, correspondence are what is in front of you. Training report, upcoming training report right here.
Yes, so, Chair, F-24, housing elements of a master plan webinar via Zoom. MSU Extension is going to be in town about entrepreneurial communities. April 15th, there's a virtual floodplain 101. MSU Extension has citizen planner virtually in May through June. And that provides you the link. Michigan Planning Association has a host of trainings on there. I didn't want to put them all, they're kind of in person or virtual, but there's a whole host of things on there, so it's great with the virtual stuff.
Do you know when the April 15th meeting is, what time of day?
Yeah, great question. It's right there, right? Let me get there. It's virtual, yeah, let me,
I've just got a pretty important meeting that morning.
While you're looking that up, I'm sorry if I missed it, is there a date for the joint meeting?
So the city council, I think, discussed May 17th, but never adopted it.
Yeah, there's no.
And then I believe Ms. Russell was trying to find additional dates that all board members could meet because they had discussed and couldn't find a date for all commission members.
So we'll probably hear about it in the next month, so.
I believe so.
All right, good deal, sounds good to me.
You're never gonna get everybody to like be good with the date. You're gonna try to get the most you can get, I
Yeah,
think.
that's pretty much where
I
we're
think we
at.
have
Yeah.
one who couldn't.
Yeah, I think right now what they're doing is they had one couldn't, and then they were going to try to spend another couple of days to try to find a date where everybody could. But if they couldn't do that, then they go back to the original date,
Okay.
which I think is May 17th.
I'm just really happy that it's on a Saturday. Because there'll be more dialogue. I mean, it'll be, I think it'll just be like, you're not tired, you're not like, you get home and you come here and you're like exhausted from being at work and, it's a Saturday. It's a Saturday, all that energy and,
By the way, I'm driving 2.5
Caffeine.
hours the second we're done tonight, so.
right, so you're gonna be really tired, so
If
this
I
is
get-
a hard meeting to do this.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be spinning our wheels a little bit, but I'm gonna nominate you to speak on behalf of both the planning commission and the DDA, so you can lead the dialogue.
Okay, well, are we gonna have a facilitator?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I'm the facilitator? Okay, well, thanks for letting me know.
You're
I can
hired.
facilitate.
You're the one who
I
came up with the
facilitate.
idea.
All right, I'll facilitate. I'm good with that.
You can be the facilitator of dialogue.
I mediate all the time. I'm good at this. I can facilitate.
Floodplains 101, 10 a.m. to 11:30.
Okay. All right, any more, no, that's about wrap up on training. And also, I guess we'll move to commissioner comments. Commissioner Johnson.
Well, I got a few thoughts and ideas. There seems to be the joint meeting topic about what all these other commissions do. And I think we ought to have some kind of documentation somewhere in the city, don't we, that we could just simply go look at it. And I mean, I don't think we need to have this great meeting about what,
Well, so for what it's worth, there's a requirement under the Main Street certification that this be educational in nature, so not just dialogue. So I just picked up on the fact that somebody said, what do the other boards do? So we're gonna try to make it simplistic, because otherwise we could provide everybody with the Planning and Zoning Enabling Act, and they're gonna say, what?
They're not gonna read
I mean,
that. I'm telling you, I bet you half the people that are on these boards haven't read it. Sorry.
No, we're good. It's Commissioner Johnson's.
I mean, if I wanna know what another board's doing, I'm gonna look into it, and I think it's out there anyway. I think it's kind of written down somewhere in our city files somewhere online, but, City Hall going down by Community Center, that gives me I don't like that idea at all. It's, especially if you're gonna expand down there with the community center, I think you're gonna be on top of one another. I know years ago, somebody was given the idea of putting it where the old sheriff jail used to be, and that's right next to the fire hall. I know it's county property, but I think that'd be a nice place for it if we could make it work. And then there's something else that it just seems like we're always, people are coming to these meetings, bringing their stuff in these meetings. It seems like there's a lot of questions before it even gets to us that should be answered. And I know Alex is our planning guy, but you're not always available. We used to have a city planner in this town years ago, and some of you have heard my story before, but he was very active at bringing business in. He was a person that could go through and go yay or nay pretty quickly, and then if he couldn't solve it, then yeah, it would get bounced to the planning commission. But I think we need a full-time, whether it's Alex, a full-time city planner that's actually actively looking for bringing business in. We don't have a hardware store in this town anymore. I'm not in full agreement with what's going on with the old Rite Aid. I don't know, it just seems like there's a better fit for a lot of that stuff, and that was, I think you need a city planner that can kind of just weed things out before it even gets to us. So that's my talk.
Thank you. Commissioner Bostic.
I would actually just like to echo Marty's comments about having a city planner. I mean, I was here when they had a city planner, and I think Alex does an excellent job, and he would make an excellent full-time city planner, if he didn't want to work with Roe anymore. But I think there is something to be said about having somebody that's invested in the city and it being there full-time every day focused just on the city of Lapeer. So, you know, obviously I've said that before when I was on the city commission and I was, you know, a minority on that position, but I think that's an excellent idea, and hopefully that can happen again in the future. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Patterson.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Commissioner Atwood.
I have no.
A city plan or city manager, Warren.
Well, I'm not sure what's being expressed on this side of the table, because the planning consultant is doing the planning and zoning analysis and site plan analysis. He's not doing economic development, which is what I'm hearing from this side of the table. We currently have a downtown development authority director who does a great job at economic development for the downtown district. We also have Mr. Sam Moore, who works for the Lapeer Development Corporation, who I work with on areas outside the downtown. I'm not opposed to having an in-house person, but I made that argument to the city commission and they roundly rejected it in favor of Rowe. And again, I agree, Mr. Riku and Mr. Ball have done a good job, but I think there are ways that we could benefit from having somebody who's a little bit more invested in the community, but that's not what the city commission wanted, so.
It's not your decision.
Not my decision.
Dale used to do kind of the same role, you know, a little bit, but,
Which I do.
yeah, I'm sure you do.
It's just, we're in a tough market right now, and I was having this conversation with somebody earlier. They still blame the city for Blaine's not coming to the city. And I had to explain to them that there are reasons why Blaine's didn't come to this community, and it had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the city. But they rejected my claims, even though, you know, I was telling them so. The problem is, from the city government perspective, we can't just always tell the public everything. Because if I told the public the reason why this deal fell apart, the person who is responsible for the deal falling apart would be then mad at me. And they would then claim that we were interfering with their ability to develop their property. So, you know, it's one of those things where sometimes we just have to take a black eye or a punch on the lip and say, it wasn't us, but, you know, we're not gonna tell you why it was. It's just the way it is. Those are my comments, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Alex. I know you're deciphering our master plan and you're going right by that, so appreciate that. That's all I have. Motion for adjournment. Or, sorry, adjournment. I don't mean
You
to
declare adjournment.
I declare adjournment.
Yeah, if it's in the agenda, and there's no other further
Yeah.
business, you can just declare it.
It's funny, I run 3 meetings and they're all basically like, my Masonic Lodge meeting is more intense because I have to recite specific words. You know what, you can
Fine, no problems. I like how fast you go through some of the stuff. There's sometimes where other boards, they want to waste their time.
Well, I think I ran over your power supply.
You're good.
I'm looking forward to an 8-hour joint meeting.
8 hours.
So that's really on Saturday?
Saturday.
They propose different days. They propose Saturday days. They
Shoot, I
propose
can
Monday
trade it
days,
some
they
other way.
propose Wednesday days,
Go to that.
Thursday days, the city commission making the decision.
Joint meeting.
So they're gonna pick a date and then
They haven't really.
I thought you were saying 17th was
But
like
it-
they
they,
were talking about.
that's
So
when you get your,
17th was the
training,
date that was
if you do it.
recommended as the date
And-
where most members could go.
Oh, okay.
And of course, I don't work for strictly most members, I work for all of them.
Right.
So I then asked Tracy to find a date in June perhaps where they all could be there, but of course, they're all busy people, so.
Yeah.
So I think by Monday we should have a date that's clear at us.
So don't drink it tonight.
Did you say something? Oh,
It's got
yeah.
caffeine in it, doesn't it?
It's a good meeting.
Probably have some,
Yeah, probably.
just with the chocolate.
Yeah, maybe I better wait till tomorrow.
See you, buddy.